Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's lecture arranged by Center for Asian and Middle Eastern Studies. I'm your host, Naufal Zamir. Tonight, we are to have our fourth lecture on the series, Islam as an Open Civilization. This is a six-part series which is taking place on a fortnightly basis. The aim of the series is to know how Muslims built an open civilization from Andalusia to India, where people from different cultures lived and flourished together, and if Islamic civilization has something to offer in this day and age. The title of tonight's lecture is Islam as an Open Civilization, Adamiyyah. The lecturer is Professor Dr. Recep Senturk, who is a very distinguished scholar in this field. Professor Dr. Recep Senturk currently serves as a professor of sociology at Ibn Khaldun University. He was the founding president of Ibn Khaldun University in Istanbul. He served as a researcher at the Center for Islamic Studies in Istanbul and the founding director of the Alliance of Civilizations Institute. He is the head of the International Ibn Khaldun Society. He published widely in English, Arabic, and Turkish on a whole range of topics, including social theory and methods, civilization, modernization, sociology of religion, networks of hadith transmission, Malcolm X, Islam and human rights, modern Turkish thought, and Ibn Khaldun. He also authored a number of books which have been translated to Arabic, Japanese, and Spanish. That's about the intro of tonight's lecture. So before we move on to the lecture, we start with the introduction, which I just done. Next, we'll go straight to the lecture, which will be around 30 to 45 minutes. After the lecture, it will be followed by Q&A section, which will last around 30 to 45 minutes. We observe few ground rules. We ask our audience to kindly keep the mic and mobile muted until told otherwise. We encourage discussion and debate, maintaining professional approach. We also encourage attendees to take notes on the lecture for the comments and Q&A section. Now, without further ado, I would like to request Professor Dr. Recep Senturk to deliver the lecture. Professor, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for this introduction, and Assalamu alaikum everyone from different parts of the world. Tonight, I'm very happy to be with you again with the fourth lecture, which is a part of series of my lectures, Islam as an Open Civilization. Today, I will be talking about the concept of Adamiyyah, which means being human, being a child of Adam. So the concept of Adam is very well known, and it's used in European languages, in Western languages. So in Arabic and Turkish and all Islamic languages as well, this concept is used, and it's a key concept in our political thought, social thought, legal thought, moral and ethical thought. But it's a forgotten concept. So I would like to draw the attention of Muslims and non-Muslims, both common people as well as scholars and researchers, to this concept. And I believe that one of the key factors that made Islam open civilization is the existence of the concept of Adamiyyah in Islamic thought. We have already talked about multiplex worldview, which I believe is the foundation, the conceptual, philosophical foundation of open civilization. And today we will be talking about the concept of Adamiyyah as the foundation of practical foundation of Islamic open civilization, because Adamiyyah is a universal concept. It means humanity in general, regardless of religion, ethnicity, class, gender, any innate or inherited or gained attributes. All right. So when I was a child, in the middle school and elementary school, the window of my class overlooked, to the old Istanbul. I saw the Orthodox Patriarch's Church in Fener, and I saw Chief Rabbi's Synagogue in Karaköy, and I saw Caliph's Palace in Topkapı. You see these pictures here. I used to see them from my high school, from Istanbul İmam Hatip Lisesi. It overlooked, to these places, and this puzzled me. This was a puzzling question as a child in my mind. How come these three leaders of major religions shared the same space? How could they coexist peacefully for so many centuries? What made this possible? So this is what I call, what I came to call later, open civilization, and I dedicated my my life to understand this issue, and I have been trying to discover like what made such coexistence possible, because especially at that time, it's unimaginable to think. I mean, three leaders of world's major religions living in the same city, in very close vicinity with each other. I mean, can you imagine, like Khalifa and the Pope and the Patriarch and the Chief Rabbi sharing Vatican? Istanbul was like Vatican, for Muslims, because the Caliph, the Khalifa lived there. But Khalifa also accepted, I mean, Orthodox Patriarch, Chief Rabbi, as well as Armenian Patriarch, because I could not see from the window of my high school, but Armenian Patriarch also lived there. I mean, four major religions, sharing the same city. So this is what I call open civilization, and my research led me to conclude that there are two major factors. One is multiplex worldview, the other is the concept of Adamiyyah, and also there's a third one, the epistemology of zanniyat, which is epistemology of uncertainty in fiqh. All right. So in this presentation, I would like to address the following questions. First, how did Muslim jurists, the fuqaha, view universal human rights and why? The second question, what were the rights of the people outside Abrahamic religions under Islamic rule? The third one, how did Ottomans manage minority rights in the millet system? And the fourth one, how was the millet system reformed in the late Ottoman period to overcome its limitations? Human rights are essentials of the Islamic normative system. If we divide Islamic norms, which we call in Arabic ahkam, to several categories, the most important category is the category of zaruriyat. And I translate zaruriyat as universal and axiomatic principles of law, and they are human rights. And they also constitute maqasid sharia. They are called darurat sharia and maqasid sharia. So they provide a foundation Islamic law, but at the same time, Muslims assume that all legal systems are based on these common principles, and they also expect that legal system serves these objectives, these goals, and they call this maqasid al-sharia, which means objectives of sharia. So objectives of sharia is to make sure that universal and axiomatic principles of law are practiced. And then another category is the nasiyat. These are the norms that are enacted by Allah Ta'ala and the Prophet in the Quran and in the Hadith. And then there is ijtihadiyat. These are the norms that are enacted through the ijtihad of the mujtahid. That means legal opinions. So we can categorize norms in Islamic law based on this. So daruriyat is universal, nasiyat is for Muslims, and ijtihadiyat may vary from mezhab to mezhab. From this perspective, we can divide norms or the rights into three categories. Rights are called in Islamic law haq, and the plural is hukuk. So there are axiomatic rights, they are self-evident, they are inherent, natural, born, inalienable, and permanent. No one takes them away from any human being. And then there are legal rights, these are negotiable and open to change. And there is also moral rights like rights of your parents on you, rights of your neighbors, rights of your friends. These are moral rights. They are not enforced by law, such as rights of God, rights of the self, rights of parents, rights of children, rights of neighbors. Like most of these rights are not enforced legally. Okay. But the major question is, who is the subject of law? In other words, whose rights and duties Islamic law decides and determines. So is it human beings in general or citizens? In other words, who are the people who are entitled to human rights? Is it like all human beings or just the citizens, and why? So this is a juridical or jurisprudential question, but it's very important because if you say the subject of Islamic law is the human being in general, universally, that means Islamic law adjudicates, makes laws for everyone, regardless of their religion, regardless of their citizenship. But if you say the subject of law is the citizen, then that means Islamic law makes laws only for the citizens of the Islamic State, doesn't care about the rest. So this is a very crucial question for law, for politics, and for ethics, all right? So from this perspective, when we study the views of Islamic scholars, we see that there are two traditions. One tradition argues that the subject of law is the human being. And they use the concept of Adamiyyah, that all the Adamis, or the people who are called Adami, and like all human beings, this is what I call Adamiyyah paradigm. So they are universalist, and then or the opposite school of thought is that Islamic law makes laws only for Muslims, Christians, and Jews. I call this Ibrahimiyya paradigm because they say the children of Ibrahim, the children of Prophet Ibrahim, and they are the citizens of the Islamic State, and Islamic law makes laws for them, not for the rest of the people. We care only for Ahl Kitab, people of the book, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, and these are the Abrahamic religions. So two paradigms in fiqh, in Islamic law, in Islamic political and ethical thought. So the Adamiyyah paradigm, as I said, is a universalist one. I mean, we can call it humanist or Adamist, and the Ibrahimiyya paradigm, we may call it communalist because they focus only on the community of people of the book, and they make a distinction between Muslim and non-Muslim, and also they make a distinction between people of the book, followers of the Abrahamic religions, and followers of non-celestial religions. So they make a distinction because they don't accept the Adamiyyah. They say we accept the Ibrahimiyya paradigm. All right. So given this division in Islamic law, if you ask, are there universal human rights in Islamic law? From universalistic perspective, from the perspective of Adamiyyah paradigm, yes, there are universal human rights in Islamic law. But from the perspective of the Ibrahimiyya paradigm, the communalist school, no, there are no human rights. So how did the Muslim fuqaha approached universal human rights, and why? So Ibn Abidin, who is a very famous Hanafi jurist who lived in Damascus, he wrote, Al-Adami mukarramun shar'an walaw kafiran. Every human being is dignified, honored, has dignity, even if he is kafir, non-believer. Okay? Because he is Adami, this is sufficient for him to mukarram, to have karama, dignity, inviolability. So it's very clear that being Adami is sufficient, to enjoy human rights. But there's an earlier principle in fiqh from this Adamiyyah perspective. It states that al-isma bil-Adamiyyah, inviolability is due to humanity. So this principle is traced back to Abu Hanifa, and it's commonly used in the Hanafi school, as well as Maliki school and the Hanbali school. But it's most commonly used in the Hanafi school. Some of the Shafis also adopt this perspective. So let me give you some other citations to provide evidence for this perspective. Abu Hanifa said al-isma bil-Adamiyyah, which means rights are due for humanity, very universalist. Okay. So Al-Midani, another Hanafi scholar, he wrote al-hur ma'soom bi nafsihi, a person is inviolable by virtue of his or her existence. And Ibn Mazah wrote al-Adami muhtaramun hayyan wa mayyitan, a human being has inviolability, dignity, both alive and dead. Even the dead body has the right to inviolability. Al-Adami mukarramun walaw kafran. This is what Ibn Abidin said. A human being has sanctity, dignity, even if she is non-Muslim. So from this perspective, we can conclude that rights are brought by at birth, rights aren't granted by the state. The subject of law is human being in general, universally. And the opposite school, the school of the Ibrahimiyyah, the communalist school, it is represented mostly by the Shafi scholars. So they say that al-isma bil iman or bil aman. So rights are due for citizenry by faith or treaty. So Muslims gain the right to inviolability to human rights because of their faith, and Christians and Jews, they have aman. They make a compact, they make a treaty with the Muslims and become citizens, and they become right to inviolability. So from this perspective, rights are granted by the states due to a contract between state and citizens. Okay, so this type of rights may be called legal rights, constitutional rights, or civil rights. So these are the terms we use today to indicate, to refer to these type of rights. And the subject of law is the citizen, not the human being. And citizenship is gained either through faith for Muslims or through treaty for Christians and Jews. So these are two major schools of thought. But you see that majority subscribes, Hanafi, Maliki, Hanbali, they subscribe to the Adamiyyah paradigm. Yes. Let me let me share with you a citation from great scholar, Hanafi scholar from 11th century from Central Asia, Imam Sarakhsi. He has like a very famous book called Al-Mabsut. It's like 30 volumes, big, huge magnum opus. And also he has a book called Usul al-Sarakhsi. So in that book, he wrote, لأن الله لما خلق الإنسان لحمل أمانته أكرمه بالعقل والذمة ليكون بها أهلا لوجوب حقوق الله عليه ثم أثبت له العصمة والحرية والملكية ليبقى فيتمكن من أداء ما حمل من الأمانة ثم هذه الأمانة والحرية والملكية ثابتة للمرء من لحظة ولادته ويكون المميز وغير المميز فيه سواء فذلك الذمة الصالحة لوجوب الحقوق فيها ثابت له من حين أن يولد يستوي فيه المميز وغير المميز. Let me read the English translation. Upon creating human beings, God graciously bestowed upon them intelligence and the capability to carry responsibilities and rights. Dhimma, so this is what's called today legal personality. If you have legal personality, that means you are entitled, to carry rights and duties, and it's called zimma in Islamic law. This was to make them ready for duties and rights determined by God. Then Allah or God granted human beings the right to inviolability, al-isma, freedom and property. So three major rights: inviolability, freedom, and property. Do you remember how many rights log list as the most important fundamental rights? They are the same: freedom, property, and inviolability. So these are the three major rights. And they are who granted these rights to human beings? Allah. He granted them right to inviolability, freedom, and property to let them continue their lives in such a way that they can perform the duties they have shouldered. So this is the reason why God granted every human being these rights. Then these rights to carry responsibility and enjoy rights, freedom, and property exist with a human being when he's born. Yeah, you see the concept of born rights. Before I came across with this text, I used to think the concept of born rights emerged in Europe, in the West. But here it's very evident, very clear that these rights are born with every child of Adam when he or she is born. The insane child and the sane adult are the same concerning these rights. This is how the proper personhood is given to him when he is born, for God to charge him with the rights and duties when he is born. So people have these rights when they are born equally. In this regard, the insane and the child and the sane and adult are equal. So this could be explained, in a long talk, but because of the limitations of time, we have to skip it. I think that's enough. So this is a very rich citation. Al-isma bil-Adamiyyah, this is a very important legal maxim in fiqh. Every child of Adam is qualified for the right to inviolability, regardless of whether they are male or female, rich or poor, white or black, Muslim or non-Muslim. This is a universal principle, which we call legal maxim. So from this perspective, we can conclude, when we interpret this principle, that all human beings have the right to inviolability. They do so merely because of their humanity. Islamic law adjudicates for all human beings and protects the rights of every child of Adam, not merely Muslims. If it humanizes all people and by bringing all of them to an equal level, it doesn't present an anthropocentric world, but establishes stewardship of Muslims over humanity, environment, and nature as divine trust, as vicegerents of Allah on earth. So it has real ramifications, implications. So these are some of them. So this principle is very important, and I would like you to keep this principle in mind, even if you forget everything I say here. Just remember this principle after this lecture. All right. So what are the rights covered under the concept of isma, under the concept of inviolability? So inviolability of life, which is called ismatul dam or ismatul nafs, inviolability of property, which is called ismatul mal, inviolability of mind or freedom of expression, which is called ismatul aql, inviolability of religion, which is called ismatul din, and also inviolability of religion, which is called ismatul din, and inviolability of honor, it is called ismatul ird. And also there is inviolability of family, which is ismatul nasl. So these are the rights that are protected under the concept of isma. So you see that the life of everyone is protected, protection of everyone is protected, and and aql, is protected, religion is protected, honor is protected, and family is protected, regardless of the religion or citizenship or color or gender of anyone. If you are Adami, your life is protected, property, religion, honor, family is protected. Also, when it says religion, it doesn't mean Islam. All religions are protected. Okay, not just Islamic religion. All right. So why are there two different positions on human rights, by Muslims? I think this is because of the methodology in the way they approach to Quran and Hadith. So these views are rooted, are grounded in the Quran and the Hadith. So this principle, al-isma bil-Adamiyyah, is a summary of many verses in the Quran and many ahadith. All right, let's move on. So the system, the social and political system Muslims established reflected this universalism, like the system Prophet Muhammad established in Medina, the system for rightly caliphs established, the Abbasid period, the Umayyad period, and the Islamic system in Andalusia and the India, I mean, they all reflected this universalist system. In particular, the rule in India by Muslims, because in India, Muslims ruled Hindus and Buddhists, and they are not Ahl Kitab, they are not Christian or Jew, they don't belong to Abrahamic religions, but Muslims granted them all these rights because this is what Sharia teaches. And the case of India under Islamic rule is a very important case because it demonstrates how the principle of Adamiyyah was practiced concretely in history. But not only the case in India, like Hindus and Buddhists under Islamic rule enjoying these rights, but also in Iran, Zoroastrians, Majus, they also enjoyed same rights. They worship fire, but they were granted the same rights. Why? Because they are Adami. And also idol worshippers, idolaters in Africa, in Mauritania, they also enjoyed the same rights. And one of my students, he wrote a PhD thesis on the rights of non-Ahl Kitab, non-Muslims under Islamic law. Non-Ahl Kitab, non-Muslims. And actually, they constitute the majority of the people in the world. What's their status in Islam? And first, he studied conceptually the views of the fuqaha, Muslim jurists on the issue. Then three cases: the case of India, Buddhists and Hindus under Islamic rule, and the case of Zoroastrians in Iran under Islamic rule, and the idolaters, the idol worshippers in Mauritania. They were granted these rights throughout history. So this is a concrete application of it. So this system was adopted by Ottomans. So Ottomans inherited that system, and they applied it during the classical period. And this is the reason why the Jewish chief rabbi, Orthodox patriarch, Armenian patriarch, and the Khalifa could coexist in Istanbul together for centuries in peace. So the Adamiyyah principle made this possible. But Ottomans made reforms in that system during the 19th century. Ottomans called this system millet system. Millet, and millet here means religious community. Religious community, because al-millah in Arabic means religious community. So they called it millet system. So there was the Christian millet, Jewish millet, Orthodox millet, Armenian millet, and the Islamic, like Muslim millet. So they all, they were structured like this. And the head of every millah represented his millah before the Ottoman Khalifa. But Ottomans made reforms in the system. In 1847, they abolished slavery. The Khalifa made a decree to abolish slavery based on the recommendation of ulama and Shaykh al-Islam. So there is no more slavery in Islam. It is abolished in 1847 by a decree from the Khalifa. All right. And in 1856, a royal decree by the Khalifa granted equal rights, in all areas, to all citizens, regardless of their religion, and granted them right to vote and to be elected, right to equal employment in all government positions, right to open confessional schools for every religious community, and right to practice denominational law in private law. So this royal decree confirmed, actually these rights existed even before, but this royal decree confirmed one more time. And in 1856, something very important happened. The Caliph, the Khalifa, abolished the Zimma status of non-Muslims and the jizya tax they paid. So his decree stated clearly that from now on, all subjects are equal citizens. There's no distinction between Zimmi and non-Zimmi, and they will all pay the same amount of tax. So the abolition of slavery and abolition of Zimma and Jizya, these are really revolutionary decisions and reforms in Islamic law. And today, many people are puzzled, with these questions. They are talking about, what are we going to do with this slavery? How are we going to do with the Zimma and Jizya? I tell them, my friend, don't shoot the dead horse. Don't waste your time with these things. I mean, the Khalifa and the Shaykh al-Islam, they solved these problems long ago. Let's start where they left and go on. Also, in 1876, they adopted the constitution, opened the parliament, and they had multi-party elections, and the non-Muslims were elected to the parliament, under the Khalifa and the Islamic and the state where Sharia was implemented. So these are some of the reforms Ottomans made during the 19th century, and adopted the Adamiyyah paradigm to the contemporary conditions in their time. So this is Sultan Abdul Majid. So he's the one who made all these reforms. He is known to be a very pious sultan. And the Ottomans, implemented Adamiyyah, following a circle of justice. And the highest building in Istanbul was Justice Tower, Kasr al-Adala in Topkapı Palace. When you come to Istanbul, you will see that in the old Istanbul, in Topkapı Palace, the highest tower is called Justice Tower, and the Circle of Justice, summarizes Ottoman view of political system, which is very inclusive, egalitarian, and allows participation. So from this, this circle of justice or circle of politics, Dairatul Siyasa or Dairatul Adala, this was the common ground in Ottoman political thought. So it states that justice is the cause of the peace and prosperity of the world. The world is a garden hedged in by sovereignty. Sovereignty is the lordship preserved by law. Law is administration governed by the king. The king is a shepherd supported by the army. The army are soldiers fed by money. Money is revenue gathered by the people. The people are servants subjected by justice. Of course, this is a very rough English translation. And if you read Arabic, you will see that it has very rich connotations. But due to the limitations of time, we have to we cannot go into details of it. But the most important message here is that the state is drawn like a circle, not like a pyramid. And usually the state is drawn like a pyramid, but here it's drawn like a circle. What's the state? Circle or pyramid? So Ottomans, Ibn Khaldun, they answered this question that the state is a circle, and they made it explicit that they borrowed it from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the Sunnah, because it says "Ad-dawlatu sultanun tahya bihi as-sunnah, as-sunnatu siyasatun yasusuha al-malik." All right. So I would like to conclude by reiterating the following points. The protection of 6 basic rights is also considered the common ground for all religions, which provides a judicial ground for religious pluralism. Because we assume as Muslims that we share these 6 principles universally by all other religions, by all other legal systems. So they constitute the common ground. We don't say, like Muslims are the first ones to protect these 6 rights. For this reason, they are called the objective law, maqasid sharia. According to Islamic theology and jurisprudence, these 6 principles constitute the unchangeable core of all religions and legal systems in the world, from Adam until today. This is the permanent, primordial core of all legal systems in the world. Islamic law has taken Adamiyyah, humanity, regardless of religion, as the subject of Islamic law, to which rights and duties are accorded. This tradition, originating from Abu Hanifa, has formed the foundation of a universalistic interpretation of Islam in the Ottoman Empire. This understanding is the basis of open law and open civilization. Thank you. This is the end of my presentation. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to address.
Thank you, Professor Recep Senturk. Thank you for your excellent piece of lecture. We already have quite a few questions, and so we hope our audience have taken notes and ready for asking more questions. So what I already see, there's a question from Mr. Masir Ali. So I'll go straight to that question. It's in the chat box as well. What would the legal or fiqh reasoning be behind including Hindus, Buddhists, or people not of the book in an Islamic government? Also, what is the reasoning behind treating Muslims and Zimmis the same in Islamic law? Any reading that give insight to this, Professor?
Yeah. I mean, the answer is simple. Adamiyyah, the concept of Adamiyyah. Because like all the Hindus and Buddhists, they are Adami, Zimmis are Adami, and if you ground your legal system, political system on Adamiyyah, you have to provide them equal rights, especially at the level of human rights, like 6 rights. I mean, other than these 6 rights, you can make differentiation. But, with respect to these 6 fundamental rights, you cannot make any distinction, among these communities. And the concept of Adamiyyah is taken, from the Hadith and the Quran. For instance, inviolability of religion, the right to the inviolability of religion. In the Quran, Allah Ta'ala says, "La ikraha fid din." There is no compulsion in religion. So this guarantees protection of freedom of religion. And the same way, life. In the Quran, there are many verses about protection of life, protection of property, I mean, these are all like stated in the Quran, and also many hadith about this, and most importantly, like khutbatul wada', when Rasulullah gave his last sermon, when he was making Hajj, he asked, "Oh people, where are we now?" They said, "In the land of inviolability, Al-Haram." And he said, "What's the time in which we are at the moment?" They said, "The Shahrul Haram, the month of inviolability." And he said, "From now on, your lives, your property, and your honor are as inviolable as they are inviolable today." So they are. So what he did, he generalized, he universalized, the inviolability which Arabs restricted to only Shahrul Haram and Masjid al-Haram. So he said all times are haram, all places are haram, and the way you think like people have inviolability in Masjid al-Haram and in the month of Haram is general all the time. So that's another dalil, very strong and explicit dalil. And of course, there are many other, proofs from the Quran and Sunnah about these things. So these legal maxims, they are called al-qawaid al-kulliyah. So this al-qawaid al-kulliyah, legal, universal legal principles, that are extrapolated from many verses from the Quran and from many ahadith, and they are turned into qaida kulliyah, or legal principle. And if you, if you are interested in knowing the dalils, behind them, you may go and check one of these books, about qawaid al-kulliyah in fiqh, and they will give you all the dalils behind them, or in a fiqh book. Yes.
Professor, one question from Aisha Fayaz.
Yes.
You have talked about circle of justice. How effective that circle was, and is it still being practiced in Turkey?
No, it's not being practiced at the moment in Turkey. It was very powerful during the Ottoman times. And one of my students, wrote a thesis on how circle of justice was used as a tool of opposition and political critique during Ottoman times. There's another PhD thesis, again, on circle of justice. So circle of justice was like a common reference point in the Ottoman Empire. So if government did something wrong, everyone said, "Oh, this is deviation from Da'iratul Adalah, from circle of justice." So everyone knew about it. It was part of the popular culture, and they made reference to it when they observed any injustice by the government. So it was very commonly used as a reference point by both statesmen, scholars, intellectuals, and the general people. But today, it's people know it, but in like a state system, it is not taken seriously, because when we abolished the Ottoman state system and adopted modern nation state, we shifted from state as a circle to state as a pyramid. Because modern nation state is built on the concept of state as a pyramid. But the Ottoman state system was based on state as a circle, da'iratu siyasa, circular hierarchy. But we borrowed this modern nation state model from the West, from Europe, from continental Europe. and in the continental Europe, state is perceived as a pyramid, not as a circle. So this was a big paradigmatic shift. That's why we still have problem in emulating this pyramid like structure. Yes.
So, Professor, the next question from Badr. Since when was the concept of Adamiyyah implemented? Was this applied during the Prophet ﷺ's life or the Khalifa Rashidun?
Yes, yeah, it was implemented from the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As I mentioned, there are references to it, and later Khulafa Rashidun and other like later states they implemented it, and the term Hurmatul Adamiyyin is very common. And in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. So I honored the children of Adam. So the concept of Bani Adam, is repeatedly used in the Quran and in the Hadith. And the concept of Adamiyyah is derived from this concept of Bani Adam. And the Karamatul Adamiyyin, Hurmatul Adamiyyin. These are concepts that are commonly used in our traditional literature, in fiqh, in hadith, in tafsir, in kalam, in tasawwuf. They are all used. So, I mean, you can make a search, using Karamatul Adamiyyin as a keyword, or Hurmatul Adamiyyin as a keyword, or Hukukul Adamiyyin as a keyword, and you will find many things in the classical literature, but there isn't like a special section dedicated only to this subject. It is like dispersed in all subjects, in all subjects. So you have to survey the whole book and find these concepts and bring them together. So this is what I have been trying to do, going through like classical literature, especially in fiqh literature, surveying those old books, and bringing together these concepts, collecting them from different under different titles, and bringing them together. And of course, more work needs to be done. We have to revive the concept of Adamiyyah because it's presently forgotten. No state, no Islamic state in the world today adopts the concept of Adamiyyah. It is not mentioned in any constitution. It's not mentioned even in the Declaration of Human Rights by OIC. It's a forgotten concept. It's so important, so key, but it's forgotten. And there is no think tank or intellectual academic institution, adopting and trying to revive this concept. But we are working on establishing something we call Adamiyyah society. So the purpose of Adamiyyah society is to resurrect, this concept, revive it, and teach it, reteach it actually, to both Muslims and non-Muslims, so that they better understand, what's in their legal, political tradition.
Thank you, Professor. I'll go to Naeem to ask his question, and then we will go to Saeed Jamaluddin, and after that, Rajiv Kumar.
Thank you, Nofal. Thank you, Professor. Actually, that was a very enlightening lecture. Few dates actually. First, when you said the slavery abolished in Ottoman Khilafah was 1847, I just looked into and found out that the slavery ended in the USA was 1865, roughly around 20 years later. And also when you spoke about the the equal rights of every citizen and right of vote of all the citizens in 1876 in Ottoman Khilafah. And interestingly, the voting rights were given to the women in the UK was 1918. So I guess roughly around 30 more years later. So which were actually interesting figures. But my question is, during the time of Islamic Golden Age, starting from the Khalifa Harun al-Rashid and ended during the time of Islamic Spain. During this around 700 years, Islam made huge progress in science, mathematics, and all those years. But it seemed very slowed down during the time of Ottoman Khilafah. Was that not a priority for the Ottoman time, actually? It was although a bit deviation of today's lecture, but related to your concept of education, learning, and progress. So why did the science and astronomy, all those development slowed down during the Ottoman Khilafah time?
Yes, thank you very much for this question. It reflects the common perception, but it changed in the academic circles. So in the academic circles, the decline paradigm that there was a golden age in the beginning and then came dark age, it is rejected. It's not accepted anymore. Muslim historians, both in America and in Europe, they changed this paradigm, but it is not yet part of the common culture. And actually, I wrote an article, Decline Paradigm, Revisiting Periodization of Islamic History. And my assistant, may share this article with you. So it's published in Germany because it's a part of a, it was a part of a series of talks organized by Osnabrück University in Germany. And they invited scholars who reject the decline paradigm, that Islamic civilization declined, in the late period. So more than 10 scholars, and they are very prominent, they wrote articles in that book rejecting the decline paradigm. And of course, there is more, more scholars, historians, Islamic historians, or historians of Islam, and also historians of Ottoman Empire. They reject this the decline paradigm because the recent research demonstrates that there was no decline. It was just an Orientalist discourse, dividing Islamic history into two periods: the golden period and the dark period. And usually that dark period begins with the rise of the Ottoman Empire, because they hate Ottoman Empire and they want to show Ottomans, they did not like science, they did not like, technology. But how come people who hate science built Süleymaniye Mosque, Sultan Ahmed Mosque? How much engineering, how much architecture science is needed, to be able to build something like this, which survived through many earthquakes. See what I mean? How could they survive against so many attacks, during the 19th century? And they protect colonization of their lands. They were not defeated, so easily. Even in the World War I, for 4 years, they were not defeated, and they were attacked in many fronts. They were attacked in North Africa, in Suez Channel, in Yemen, in Persian Gulf, in Caucasia, in Dardanelles, in Balkans. They could fight against the whole world, for 4 years. How come a sick man or a dead man, could resist the whole world for 4 years? So they were really strong, alhamdulillah. The last Ottoman Sheikh al-Islam, Mustafa Sabri Effendi, he wrote that he said, our defeat is not a civilization defeat, it's a military defeat. he said, we are defeated militarily. And this does not show Europe is superior in civilization and culture to us. He says we are superior to Europe with respect to our civilization, our culture, our religion, but we are defeated militarily, and we will re-defeat them again. This is what he said. We'll recover. But there are Orientalists. They generalize. They generalize as if it's like a collapse in every field. No, it was not a collapse in every field. I mean, especially during the 19th century, Ottomans made really great reforms, and they were on par with the rest of the world with respect to science, technology, and also human rights, political system. They were not backward or declined, but this idea of golden age implicitly indicates dark age. That's why I reject the idea of golden age. I say all Islamic history is golden age. So they have dark age in their history, like Middle Ages is their dark period, and they want a dark period in our history as well. But there is no dark period in our history. We are very proud of our history. We are very proud of our civilization, but they want to embarrass us. They don't like us feel proud, of our history and civilization. And recent research, as I have mentioned, based on archival, research, testifies that there is no decline. When you study Ottoman history, and people who did research in this area, they are not like most of them are not Muslims. They are non-Muslims, from well-respected universities in the world. For instance, Khalid Ru'ayhib, he's a Christian professor from Harvard University. He wrote a book, claiming that in the 17th century, Islamic thought was very vibrant, and he compared Morocco and Istanbul, and he demonstrated that people were very rationalist in the 17th century, and there was like very vibrant philosophical, rational thinking in both Ottoman Empire and Morocco. And there are many other books. I mean, I don't want to take long time, but if you want, we can dedicate another talk to this. And my assistant shared my article on decline of decline paradigm. Those who are interested, they can read it.
Thank you, Professor. I think this is a can of worms. If we start discussing about this question, that itself can take a whole lecture. I think in the CAMS lecture series, we have discussed about this topic in some detail. And obviously this topic can be discussed again and again. This is a very important topic. But we will go to some more questions. I can see hand. Saeed Jamaluddin, could you please make your question?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First and foremost, Hujjah, Professor, thank you for a great lecture as always. I met you in the summer in the Sulaymaniya Madrasa. You were mentioning Sulaymaniya. I was part of the Khalil Center course. So we spoke, and I'm friends with Dr. Human as well. So I want to first and foremost thank you for your great works you have done to really revive the Islamic knowledge into the contemporary context. And I also want to thank James. Thank you so much, all of you, Ustad Naufal, Ustad Naeem, all of you for a great lecture today. It's an honor to be with all of you. So Ustad, Professor Hujjah, I'm from the International Students of Islamic Psychology, and I look at psychology as an intersection with sociology, of course. And we know in the Islamic tradition, we have ilm al-nafs as an interdisciplinary approach. We have tasawwuf and fiqh and akhlaq uniting and providing for this essence. And my question is really, Ustad, Professor Hujjah, from the aspect of revival. You were criticizing, with all respect, and I totally agree with you, the colonial narrative of, Islam declining, all this, dark age, and we had golden age for 200 years. I really loved your thoughts regarding that, and you're so right. And that turns to my question, because nationalism is truly a disease, right, Professor? And we see that the concept of Adamiyyah, as you were speaking during the Khulafa, was vital. It was the foundation of the society. What do you think today, Professor Recep Senturk, regarding some of the Islamic states? And I say Islamic state in quotation because I don't know if there are Islamic states or not. It seems like they're built upon a nationalistic notion, right? That the Islamic states we see in some parts of Africa or Asia, they call themselves Islamic State of this country, but it's still not the true Islamic State, as I understand. It's built upon the European Western colonial nationalistic state. Is that true, first and foremost? Is that also your analyzation? And the second is, how can we create the fitri society again, where we can really implement this Adamiyyah approach that you're speaking about? I hope that my question was understandable. Jazakallah khairan, Professor.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you again in Istanbul.
Inshallah, it will be my honor.
Inshallah ta'ala. Yes, it's a very important observation that that modernization and westernization is a shift from the universalistic Adamiyyah paradigm to nationalistic, European paradigm. Like we abandoned universalism in our legal tradition, political tradition, and we adopted narrow-minded nationalism. And this is what I call a shift from open civilization to closed civilization. And this was presented to us as progress, as modernization, and we stigmatized the past, the open civilization, as backwards, as dark age, but today even the Europe itself came to the conclusion that nation state is evil, and that's why they want to go beyond nation state. They want to establish European Union. So this is based on the realization that nation states brought destruction to Europe. They killed each other in millions during the First World War and the Second World War, and during like ideological fights. So now they want to abandon nation state ideology, nation state model, and move further, to bring together all Europeans under a new umbrella. But it's very difficult for them, to make this move forward. But we, under the European influence, we shifted, we moved from this universalistic understanding of Islam, the Adamiyyah paradigm, to nation-state model, which is very narrow-minded, is based on closed civilization. And so it's very unfortunate that we abandoned such universalistic perspective and adopted this like very narrow-minded nationalistic state models. So as Europe moves away from nation-state model, I hope that we will also move away from nation-state model. And I believe that Adamiyyah, which is completely forgotten, neglected, and abandoned today, will play a great role. In unifying the whole humanity, not just Muslims, the whole humanity, under this universalistic thinking. And we are very fortunate that we have this in our tradition. There is a conceptual thinking, very rich conceptual thinking, also very rich practice over 15 centuries, from India to Andalusia to Balkans, everywhere. We are not talking about a utopia. We are talking about the reality. you know. So and in my presentations, you know, I try to demonstrate this, you know, like there is a conceptual depth, you know, in our fiqh, and our different mazahib, you know, share this idea, and great scholars, you know, have been writing on it for so many centuries, but unfortunately it's abundant. So inshallah, you know, our purpose is to revive this, and we offer it to whole humanity, not just to the Muslim world, but because you know, in Europe, in the West, they have a big challenge in coming up with a universalistic, inclusive paradigm. You know, they have big paradigm. So there are liberals. I really appreciate their efforts, but they don't tolerate anything other than liberalism.
Mm.
You know, I mean, you know, they claim to be very tolerant. I really like their passion to be tolerant and open-minded, but they don't tolerate anyone, you know, who's not like them. So there's a big problem. So we have to teach them how to be tolerant, you know, because they don't have this in their philosophical tradition, legal tradition. They don't have something like this, and also in their practical history, you know, they have never had any state, you know, adopting open civilization. You know, during the Middle Ages, you know, they had closed civilization because of Christianity, and after secularization, they had closed civilization because of nationalism. You know, so they want to go beyond it, but they need our help. You know, we have to help them. We have to teach them the Adamiyyah paradigm and share it with them and offer this to them. It has really rich philosophical foundation and justification, and also practice through so many centuries. And I believe this is what the world needs today. The world needs today diversity management system, a universalistic, a fair and just diversity management system. And there are big problems in America and in Europe and in other parts of the world. Diversity is not managed very well, and that's why lots of people suffer. So as Muslims, we have the rich tradition, and we can offer them Islamic diversity management system, inshallah ta'ala.
Inshallah, Jazakallah khair, Hajj. I'm always honored to listen to you. Thank you so much for your great nasiha.
Before we go to Rajiv, we will come to you, but let me very quickly, a very pertinent question has appeared in the chat box, which is, Professor, how do we reconcile the concept of Adamiyyah and slavery? Because slavery obviously doesn't have certain rights, and the concept of Adamiyyah, the rights you have shared, obviously not all of those rights, rights to property, rights to personal life, family, etc., etc., wouldn't be given to slaves. How do you reconcile that?
Yes, yeah, this is a very important question. I mean, the life of a slave is protected. You know, you cannot kill a slave, you know, for no reason. And the same way, the religion of a slave is also protected. You cannot force a slave to accept your religion. So if a slave is married, you cannot like divorce that slave, you know, because family is protected. So the slaves also have their honor, you know, of course, not like the free people, but their honor is also protected. And Islam teaches us, feed them what you eat and dress them what you dress. But of course, you know, slavery was based on reciprocity, the rule of reciprocity. If non-Muslims like captured Muslims and made them slaves, Muslims made slaves the captives they got from the enemies. And in the 19th century, they stopped making Muslim slaves. We also stopped making them slaves. So it is based, its logic was based on reciprocity. But of course, they did not like treat Muslim slaves the way we treated non-Muslim slaves. And Alhamdulillah, it's abolished now by Muslims and non-Muslims. And it's over. And there's no reason to waste our time, talking about it. But I see like many Muslims, wasting their time, talking about it, doing research about it, writing books and papers about it. I tell them, don't shoot the dead horse. It's over. Do something useful, beneficial, relevant for today. So it's better to invest, our energy to something that's relevant for today, rather than studying a past issue which is no longer relevant for today.
Right. So Rajiv Kumar.
Assalamu alaikum, Professor Recep Senturk and organizer. Thank you very much for a great lecture.
Rajiv, we are losing.
Don't only talk with the content and knowledge, but also, am I audible? Am I audible?
You're breaking.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, carry on, Rajiv, carry on. We are waiting.
Hello.
Rajiv,
can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Now we can hear you. Carry on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much. Such a beautiful talk. I was saying that you don't only talk with the knowledge and content, but also with the ruh. So that's the beauty of your lecture. I just wanted to add on the question that was put by the Sayyid Jamaluddin, that when you talk about Islam as an open civilization, or so the civilization that when you talk about that was developed altogether, so there is a beginning of something, or you think that there was no beginning of all together everything appeared, and then and when we say that today in our time, in technical age, in the modern time, when the Muslim is there is no Muslim state, or there is no Muslim civilization as such. So I mean, do you think that you are contradictory that Islam there is no fall of decline of Islamic civilization when there is a rise of Islamic civilization?
Okay, thank you very much for this very good question. Open civilization started with Prophet Adam alayhi salam. Because we like our fuqaha, our jurists, they say that daruratu sharia, the axiomatic principles of law, they are permanent, they are primordial. Like all prophets, preached these laws, like Adam, Ibrahim, Moses, Jesus, all prophets, and Buddha, I mean, like all great masters and all great philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, like all of them, because they say like all people, like all prophets, preached these principles, and all legal systems in the world have been based on these principles. So they don't make the exceptionalist claim that Prophet Muhammad brought these principles for the first time. But in other religions, and legal schools, they claim to have fathered universal human rights for the first time. Muslims just the opposite. They say universal human rights existed from the very beginning of humanity. This is the core and unchangeable core, primordial core of all sharias. Prophets preached throughout human history all over the world. So So we don't claim, that like we are exceptionalist, we have fathered, these rights. But what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, he revived and restored this tradition, because Arabs, they restricted inviolability of people to 4 months, haram months, Ashhurul Haram, and also only to haram, the haram land, the Kaaba and the adjacent area. So they narrowed it down. Why? Because if they follow the authentic Abrahamic teaching, they were going to be restricted in exploiting, looting, stealing, killing, right? So they manipulated this, and they said, okay, only 4 months are, months of inviolability. Only the land of haram is the land of inviolability. But what Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, people's lives, property, and honor are inviolable everywhere and all times, similar to the fact that they are inviolable today in the month of haram and in the land of haram. So he universalized, he restored the primordial teaching of all messengers of Allah Ta'ala, because there was no messenger of Allah, there was no Sharia who taught killing other people is okay, stealing is okay, imposing religion on other people is okay, and not respecting to nikah, the family, the marriage is okay. No. And today, we are all rediscovering our religion. We have shortcomings, we have things that are missing, but we don't say it's un-Islamic. We don't rubbish totally. We just draw attention to what's missing, and from a constructive, critical perspective, we remind people what they are missing and how they can complement it. So today, what's missing is the concept of Adamiyyah, this universal understanding of Islam among Muslims, like educated Muslims or statesmen. So our mission is to remind them this, teach them this, inshallah ta'ala, so that they can revive it. That's our mission. Basically, we are trying to restore the social memory of Muslims. We are trying to resurrect something that some people wanted to kill and destroy. And we believe that this is good, not only for Muslims, but for the whole humanity. And I think everyone will benefit from this concept of Adamiyyah, Muslims and non-Muslims in the world, inshallah ta'ala. Yes.
Thank you, Professor. So I can see another hand, Mr. Mullah.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Professor Recep, how are you?
Alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam.
Professor, whether we Muslims want or not, like or not, non-Muslims and the haters of Islam will raise the issue of slavery. They will try to say it is a black spot in Islam. What I tend to think is that, is it anything to do with Islam, slavery? Is slavery an Islamic issue, or Islam had to deal with that?
When I'm asked this question, I tell them it's over. This is a dead issue. I don't want to waste my time with it, but they like us to apologize all the time, as Muslims, because they think, oh, this is your soft spot, apologize from us because you have slavery. But they had it worse. See what I mean? They had worse, experience, worse history with slavery. So I don't, blame them for what they had. I just tell them you know, is that issue? I don't want to waste my time with it. Ask me something relevant for today. You know, but they like us, like to apologize every generation, you know, generation after generation. Oh, we have slavery, but it's not a problem. We treat it nicely. It's not really Islamic problem, etc., etc. And like they want Muslims always apologize for it, but they, you know, I mean, if there is somebody to apologize, they should apologize. You know, they were the colonizers. You know, they committed genocide in many parts of the world. You know, not even give the chance to be like slave, you know, to people. They killed, you know, millions of people all over the world. So if there is somebody to apologize, they should apologize.
Professor, there is a
For the,
connected issue with
mistakes.
that Zimmi concept. How do you deal with this matter? I mean, the Zimmi.
Yeah,
If we advocate for Adamiyyah principle, how does it go with that? I mean, that Zimmi concept.
yeah, I mean, the Zimmis, you know, they had these rights. You know, they had these rights. You know, they had these 6 basic fundamental human rights. They enjoyed these rights, but in social life, there were some differences in the amount of tax they paid. There were some differences. You know, and in the 19th century, our ulama taught, you know, there is no need to keep these differences. We make everyone pay the same tax, and we call everyone citizen. That's it. You know, so these were some insignificant, unimportant differences at the like a social life, and it was easy to abolish them and say that you know, like you know, our citizens are all equal, you know, and our citizens will pay the same amount of tax. Because it's not like it's not an essential part of Sharia or religion. I mean, so it was easy to make this reform and change.
Thank you.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are nearing to the end of it. Professor, I got a couple of questions for you. And so this is, you know, we spoke about, you shared details about the Maliki school, Hanafi and Hanbali school compared with Shafi school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have within Islam, the different schools of thoughts can prevail in different times. Different schools of thoughts can prevail, and that means that there will be this implication that at some point Adamiyyah can be changed by the you know, the Ibrahimiyya. That can happen. So you know, how do you, that sounds like you know, someone of this contemporary world may see that to be just a change, like in the American governance, the presidential system. So it can happen in the Islamic world as well. This whole philosophy can change, and then it will followed by change in laws. And how do you answer to that? I mean, that
Yes,
can happen. Can
yes,
it not?
yeah. I mean, if even if I mean, we have to understand the approaches carefully. According to 3 mezhebs, we are obliged as Muslims to protect life of everyone in the world, property of everyone in the world, honor of everyone in the world, family of everyone in the world, religion of everyone in the world. But the Shafis, they say, no, we are not obliged to protect everyone. We are just obliged to protect our own citizens. This is what they say. So even if such a change, you know, that means, like you see in America, you know, they're expansionist, and then there are like people who advocate withdrawal, you know, you know. So whether we will take care of the whole world, whether we will make sure like we protect rights of everyone in the world, you know, or we'll just protect our own citizens, you know. So that's the debate about. The Shafis, they say, we just protect our own citizens, this is enough, and we accept as citizens only Christians and the Jews, you know. we don't grant citizenship to other people, you know.
So
Or-
Adamiyyah would be giving citizenship to everybody.
Yes, or they say, or they change, they reinterpret the Shafi view. They say Buddhists are also Ahl Kitab because they have book, you know, although they are not mentioned in the Quran. So they say, you know, they have their sacred book. So we take them as Ahl Kitab as well and treat them Ahl Kitab. See what I mean? So there is this interpretation as well in the Shafi school. So basically, in practice, nothing is going to happen to non-Abrahamic religions, except that we will not feel obliged, you know, to protect them. But this is a pledge, you know, by Muslims that we will protect everyone, everywhere in the world, as Malcolm X said, you know, against any oppressor, everywhere, regardless who he is, you know, and together with the oppressed people, you know, regardless where he or she is, you know. So a Muslim is obliged by his religion, by her religion, to stand for all the oppressed people in the world, you know, regardless of the geography where they live, regardless of their religion, you know. So that's the Adamiyyah paradigm, you know. But Ibrahim paradigm, they say, no, we cannot reach out to everyone in the world. We are just responsible, you know, to protect our own citizens.
Great, thank you, Professor. Naeem, you want to ask a question? Please go
Thank you,
ahead.
Professor. Actually, I feel obliged to ask one question as well.
Yes,
the
please.
thing is, Professor, you said that you mentioned about Buddha, Aristotle, Plato, that when you're talking about the prophets, you know.
No, I'm not talking. Oh no, I did not count them as prophets, you know, as like lawmakers or philosophers of law.
Do you think, I understand that. Do you think there are some debates about Buddha? I understand that Aristotle, Plato may be different text or context.
Yeah.
What's your thought on Buddha?
I personally assume Buddha was also a messenger of Allah, you know, and some very respected scholars, you know, say he was a messenger of Allah, but his message was corrupted later by later generations, and I believe this is quite possible, you know, and I see this like a possibility. But when Muslim jurists make this claim that the principle of inviolability is the foundation of law, they don't only mean religious law, they mean like all legal systems, even the secular legal systems, because they say that these principles may be reached through secular reason as well as religious reason, and akli and nakli, you know. And actually, the concept of daruri means, you know, it is necessary for reason to arrive to that conclusion. That's the meaning of daruri as an epistemological category. You know, like one example for daruri knowledge is that a part is smaller than the whole. This is daruri, you know, this is axiomatic. So this is self-evident. So they say, you know, these principles are so self-evident, whether religious or non-religious, all people understand this. And there is a universal consensus among religious people and non-religious people and people from different religions about these principles. So this is what makes millet system, you know, people from different religions living together. And as long as different communities agree on these 6 principles, we can coexist peacefully without any problem. You know, so we don't care about what they believe or what they don't believe. You know, as long as they respect these 6 principles, this is enough as a common ground for us to live together, to coexist peacefully. So that's the idea behind it.
Thank you very much, Professor. One last comment, or it's a kind of a question. You mentioned to Naim's question on the scientific advancement, that the Orientalist view of Dark Ages and the age of the fall or decline. I mean, it's to defend oneself, or we see that it's a different line of defense to say that they are our enemies and therefore they say whatever they want to say. Is there hard evidence to support that Ottomans were equally progressing on science and
Yes.
other aspects?
Yes.
And,
yeah.
And just to add with that, because we are going to close. So to add with that, you mentioned at the end of where the Ottomans ended, it was a military fall rather than an intellectual and spiritual or any other faculties. So if you pick things up from there, will it not be a giant testing ground, because the new systems were introduced at the very late part of 19th and century, and or 20th century, which are going to be kind of tested in new ground. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I mean, we are always tested, Muslims and non-Muslims, men or women, educated and non-educated, we all face tests. There are individual tests, but also communal tests. So, I mean, our communal test as Ummah is very big, today. But the communal test previous generations of the Ummah faced was not different, was not less difficult or less challenging than the ones we face. We faced challenge of Mughals, who attacked Baghdad, destroyed Baghdad, and we faced a challenge of Crusaders who came to Jerusalem, established, a state there and survived for a century. We also faced the, challenge of Latins, taking over Andalusia. I mean, all these challenges, took place in the past. And so today we are faced just another challenge. And Alhamdulillah, we overcame all those challenges, and 1 century is not long period in the history of a big civilization. Inshallah ta'ala, this too shall pass. This too shall pass, inshallah ta'ala. And with respect to your other question, the paradigm shift in the discipline of Islamic history took place because of the hard facts discovered from the archives. It was the dominant paradigm in all academic circles to accept that Islamic civilization declined, after 10th century, but the hard facts discovered by academics, Muslim and non-Muslim, European, American, demonstrated that decline paradigm is no longer possible. In the light of these new discoveries, new data, new hard facts. So this is the reason why they had to shift, from the decline paradigm to anti-declinism. And if you read my article, you will see many names, from respected universities from around the world. They wrote many books. And the first one, who criticized decline paradigm is Marshall Hudson. In his well-known book, The Venture of Islam, is 3 volumes published by Chicago University. He was not Muslim. He said that in the 16th and 17th century, the most powerful empires in the world were Muslim empires. Ottoman Empire, Safavi Empire, and the Baburi Empire, in India. In India, in Iran, and in the Ottoman lands, they were like the most powerful. states in the world and the richest states in the world. So he challenged for the first time in that book, and later other scholars followed this. As I said, I can lecture on this for another hour, but I advise, like, you read my article, like everything is there. And if you are interested more, you go to the book in which this article is published. It's published in Germany, but there are English articles as well. Or I can like lecture next, we may dedicate our next lecture to that topic, if you like.
I think, Professor, thank you very much. Could you please make a concluding remark, just 30 seconds, your concluding remark for today, and then we will close our session.
Excuse me, please. Can I ask last question? Since I have been struggling with this, this idea of this conflict actually, because Professor Recep Senturk is Khalduni, and when we talk about Islam in context of civilization, and Ibn Khaldun, he says rise and fall, but Professor Recep Senturk, he never accepts that there is a fall of Islam as a civilization. So here my mind gets stuck.
Sorry to interrupt. You asked that question, I think.
So this is my question. This is my question.
Yes. Yeah. Let him ask the question. Yes.
So here I get stuck here. That's when you are Khalduni, and Ibn Khaldun, he says rise and fall. There is a rise of civilization and then a fall. Mm-hmm. But you never accept that there is a fall of Islam as a civilization, Islamic civilization. So how you want to justify this?
I mean, Muslims fell as they got defeated by the West, whether I accept or not. I mean, there's a failure, and it's evident. But what is this failure about? So that's the question. Is it because Muslims intellectually declined, or morally declined, religiously they were like less superior, to the West, or it's a military defeat, a fall due to a military defeat? So I mean, of course there is a fall, like Muslims were defeated and the Muslim lands were colonized. This is a defeat, and there is nothing in our religion saying that Muslims cannot be defeated. Even the Prophet Muhammad was defeated in Uhud. See what I mean? So it's something that can happen. I mean, Muslims may also be defeated, and they were defeated many times, and we are defeated in First World War. But this defeat is misrepresented by Orientalists. It's presented as if it was because of the decline of religion, because of the decline in the Muslim mind and thinking. But I'm saying this defeat is because of the military imbalance of power. There was an imbalance of power, like the whole world. They were united and attacked one single state. I mean, like the whole world united, except the Germans. They were allies of Ottomans, and they were not sincere allies. They were not really collaborating, with the Ottomans. And after 4 years, Ottoman Empire was defeated and collapsed, and the Muslim lands were colonized. So this is clear, and no one can argue against this. But what I argue, this was not like a decline in Muslim thinking or morality or religion. And actually, Ibn Khaldun, when he talks about the decline, he also says, it usually happens through military defeats. And he also argues that the more developed a civilization, the more fragile it becomes to the military attacks from outside and to be defeated. So I have another article Sociology of Civilizations, where I discuss this issue and explain it. This is Haldunian paradox. The more you're developed, the more you are open, or like the more you are under threat of getting attacked and destroyed. So being progressed makes you fragile and less fight, less how should I say, less sturdy against the outside attacks. So this is Haldunian paradox. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Professor. So if you kindly conclude, and perhaps if you share with everyone about your Usul Academy, that would be great. And then we will conclude our session.
Thank you very much. So we have recently established an educational institution. We call it Usul Academy. Its motto is Rooted Revival. It's a 4 years education program. If you don't know Arabic, there is Arabic prep, for 1 year. It is designed to provide Islamic education to students who are already enrolled in college and universities and professionals who would like to continue learning more about Islam from cradle to grave, in a serious and systematic manner. It's not like, there is just a video, you just watch it. It's a structured program, 4 years, and it has several components. First, the component of academic Arabic. If you don't know Arabic, you learn Arabic for a year, and there's a placement test. If you know like some, then you start from your own level. So this academic Arabic, and then what some people call Darsi Nizami, the madrasa curriculum, the traditional madrasa curriculum, teaching like linguistic, like sarf, nahi, mantiq, like logic, and also fiqh, usul fiqh, tafsir, hadith, ilm al-kalam, tasawwuf, like all these disciplines in a structured and systematic manner, building, one by one, not in a unsystematic, haphazard way, the way they were offered in our Madrasa Nizamiya curriculum. And then besides this, we offer current issues from a comparative and critical social science perspective. So this way we bring together the most traditional knowledge from the Darsi Nizami and the most modern knowledge from social sciences, and help our students how to bridge that traditional knowledge with the most modern issues. So because our goal is not to study history, but our goal is to offer solutions, to human questions and problems. So we want to raise future scholars with this education, or contribute, to the education of future scholars, people who are interested seriously in learning Islam and combining it with their own academic education or professional education. It is 9 hours per week. During the week, there are asynchronous classes. You just, watch and study on your own pace. And then over the weekend, synchronous classes over Zoom. Like you get to meet your instructor, your professor and teacher. It's really excellent, and it fills a very significant gap, because there are university students, they want to learn about Islam. So it is like doing double major, for the university students. And that's why we call our program dual degree honors program. We call it a virtual global madrasa. So anyone, who's a student, or anyone, who's a professional, may be enrolled, and it's easy flexible but serious and systematic. It's no joke. It's serious and systematic. So if you are interested in like learning authentic Islamic knowledge in a systematic way, you are most welcome to join. And the deadline is tomorrow. I mean, you can apply today or tomorrow by going to the web page usul.academy. Usul.academy. You can apply. And we believe that this is a great opportunity. I mean, we want to offer this service, to serious students who are not fortunate to dedicate their whole time to studying Islam, or professionals who cannot go in person, to study in an Islamic country or dedicate their whole time to it. So we bring, madrasa education plus the contemporary, social science education, and make it really feasible and possible for those who are interested in learning more in an authentic, systematic, and serious way. And also, we will make some retreats in Istanbul, inshallah, for 3 weeks. Students will come to Istanbul. We'll make some retreat in Istanbul. We'll give them tours around Istanbul, history on site, education. Take them around, inshallah, and also bring them together with prominent scholars, mashayikh, ulama, so that, because we want to compensate the online, because online is not really what we desire. So we'll compensate through some retreats in Istanbul. Some retreats will be like a reward, for our students to come to Istanbul and meet with scholars and see around all these marvels of Islamic civilization in Istanbul. So this is briefly what it is. And if they have any questions, they can go to, Usul Academy webpage and ask their questions from there.
Brilliant. Thank you, Professor Recep Senturk, for your brilliant and enlightening lecture today. With that, just a quick reminder to everyone that if you want to follow the CAMS lecture series, there's a WhatsApp group link given. You can join there to keep up to date with the upcoming lectures and also resources. Thank you, Professor Senturk.
Welcome. You're welcome.
We, our next lecture will be on 28th October, Thursday, on the topic of what would the world gain with the rise of Islam. So with that, we thank Professor Recep Senturk for delivering the lecture. We thank you all for taking part and making valuable contributions in the discussion. And we are very much looking forward to seeing you in the next lecture as well. Our closing, our closing of our lecture takes place now. For this evening, we'll see you at the next lecture. Bye for now. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.